Welcome back to Midday. We are down at the Kamloops Art Gallery on this Monday afternoon, and we are checking out a grouping of new exhibits that are on display between now and March 22nd. We have curator Cheryl Neville joining us for that. It's great to see you again.
You too.
We're checking out a couple of new exhibits here that Cheryl's talking to us about, and then we'll be talking to Tanya Willard, who will be showing us one as well. But we're talking right now about Beautiful Monsters and Picasso.
Yes, we have 3 exhibitions on right now in the main galleries, and it's really looking at printmaking from the late 1400s until the 16th century till the 21st century.
Okay, so what is Beautiful Monsters all about?
Essentially, it's 50 different engravings that are on tour from the National Gallery of Canada. And they depict all kinds of otherworldly beings and fantastical creatures that have appeared in prints during the 15th, 16th, and 17th centuries.
And what kind of a story do they tell?
Well, the exhibition is actually divided into a few different themes, and one of them is like religious chimera, one of them is horses or cavalry kind of imagery, there's mythology and sea monsters, and so it's just interesting to see that over the course of those 3 centuries that artists were really interested in different ways of responding to the other world. So whether it was a response to religious dogma, there's lots of really grim depictions of heaven and hell, for instance. And you see this kind of interest in the beautiful, but then the darker side, the monstrous side of life, even today in our obsession with vampires and zombies, right?
Right, I was just going to ask that. This is sort of like the pop culture of the day back then.
Exactly. Yeah. There's actually a really intricate etching here that's called the Whore of Babylon, which is kind of like today's modern day Las Vegas. There's all kinds of illicit activities going on in this print, and it's all very detailed. We actually have magnifying glasses for people to come and look closely because they're all wood engraving and really, really detailed.
That's fantastic. And so the second one, Picasso, what are we looking at in terms of his work?
That's also a selection of works from the permanent collection of the National Gallery of Canada, and it is 10 engravings or etchings from Picasso during the period of like 1930 to 1937, and they're drawn from the National Gallery's permanent collection from the Vallard suite. And Ambrose Vallard was actually the first art dealer in Paris who gave Picasso an exhibition. So in 1901, he had his first exhibition, and he made a series of 100 prints for Vallard. And this is a small selection, but they'll be quite familiar, I think, to some people. They also depict this monstrous figure of the Minotaur, for instance, and often he's been understood as like a personification of Picasso himself. So this is during a time in his life when he was having a love affair with Marie Theresa Walter, and she was a 17-year-old girl. There's these depictions of kind of a young girl in some of these etchings, and then this very passionate kind of Minotaur figure, which is understood to be Picasso himself.
Interesting. So he's almost telling a bit of a story from his life through his work.
Exactly.
Fantastic. Mm-hmm. So anyone who's a big fan of Picasso should definitely be coming down and checking it out.
Yeah, they're incredible. I mean, this is a great opportunity to see some really key works from that selection.
We're joined now by Tanya Willard, who is the Aboriginal curator in residence here at the Kamloops Art Gallery. It's great to see you again.
Yes, great to see you.
Yes. Thank you for joining us to tell us a little bit about Unlimited Edition. This is an exhibit that you've put together. What is it about?
Well, this exhibition draws work from the Kamloops Art Gallery permanent collection, which I had the opportunity to come and see as my role as Aboriginal curator in residence. And so it builds on a number of the printmaking works and graphic arts traditions of Indigenous peoples, which are reflected in the collection, the permanent collection of the Kamloops Art Gallery. And it sort of looks at themes of social justice and printmaking as something that's become a medium for Aboriginal artists, both in the fine art world, but also within the community.
Okay, so taking a look at some of the pictures even right behind us, maybe you can even explain a little bit about what this one is.
Sure. Well, this is Richard Hunt's work, Fireman Dancer. Richard Hunt is a really important artist who started working early on in silkscreen. A lot of the Northwest Coast artists who worked in silkscreen as a medium started out in Victoria. And so a lot of these images as well kind of reflect spiritual and cultural traditions of mythical creatures. And so there was an association with the current exhibition, Beautiful Monsters, and the rest of the gallery. And that sort of reflection of a sort of more of an anxiety around mythical creatures and their representation as a binary of sort of heaven and hell. And this incorporates a more holistic sort of picture of those creatures as associated with traditional stories and legends and lineages and histories of people.
So each of these pictures tells a story that's different.
Definitely, and I can't go into lots of detail about, I mean, some I have a better picture of than others, but some have very complex lineages and historical community stories within the image, like in Bill Reed's work, for example, which he really worked to bring out that narrative within his work.
Now, you have a piece at the very end of the corridor that has been borrowed from the Royal BC Museum in Victoria. Tell me about that one.
So that was an important work for me. These exhibitions currently at Kamloops Art Gallery have a lot of historical association, and I was really striving to create that association for Northwest Coast silkscreen art and Aboriginal printmaking in general. And so this work, borrowed from the Royal BC Museum, is a work by Ellen Neal, and it's her actual wooden silkscreen frame. So whereas we're used to seeing the finished print beautifully matted and clean and a perfect sort of copy, what we see with Ellen Neal's wooden silkscreen frame is the actual object used in producing the work. And so we see the artist's hands in actually creating the work. And again, she was cited as doing the first ever silkscreen of Northwest Coast art, which has sort of become really iconic for us now in terms of seeing representations of that artwork.
There's even meaning to the color on the walls, this turquoisey blue.
Yeah, so this color on the walls was selected for me to make a conceptual link with the use of a blue color in Northwest Coast art, which comes from the introduction of Reckitt's laundry bluing detergent. And so this starts to become used as a pigment in carving masks and poles and different kinds of traditional art forms. And so I wanted to make that association with the using of new materials, but to tell the old stories.
Fantastic. And what is the main message that you want people to leave with after taking a look at each of these individual pictures?
Well, I want people to have a sense of the overall diversity of Aboriginal art and of Aboriginal artists working in contemporary mediums like printmaking. And so Ellen Neal's silkscreen frame there, where she's cited to have created the first silkscreens of Northwest Coast art, is really about 1948. And we also have a number of representations of Inuit art that come from a period where printmaking is being introduced and mentored in the far north. And so we see a really strong Inuit arts graphic tradition out of this period as well. So there's actually not a lot of resources and references for this sort of time period, specifically in Northwest Coast art. And so I wanted to sort of illustrate that and create some historical sort of context around that work.
Fantastic. Tanya, thank you for talking to us today.
Thank you.
If you're interested in coming and checking out these exhibitions, they are on display here at the Kamloops Art Gallery from now through until March 22nd. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
We didn't come from money, but every song's like gold teeth, gray goose dripping in the bathroom, bloodstains, ball gowns, trash in the hotel room. We don't care. We're driving Cadillacs in our dreams, but every